to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
You know, that's my take. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Yeah, alright, it's a science thing. It's a science place. It's a scientific fact. We are all up in your face. It is time for the one, the only, the home of the
Protonic Reversal.
Yes, y'all. Yes. Tonight's episode. Being a police story for anybody that knows that show. Billy Gould. Talking Book, Faith No More, Jello Biafra's band, MC50, Brujeria. I mean, he's on that second Milk Cult record, even if it's just one song. Dude's a legend. So, yeah, man, this should be a good one. We've talked about doing this for like 4 or 5 years. Looking forward to it. So, yeah, without further ado, let's play a tune. And let's get into it. Here's something off of Talking Book 2 by Billy Gould and 2 other dudes. It's cool. All right. So that's Thermal Drift by Talking Book 2. And right now on the phone we have none other than Mr. Billy Gould. How you doing, sir?
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
Good, man. We haven't done one of these marathon things in a while. Kind of abrupt gear shift. But yeah, I just want to say I've been listening to the Talking Book record all day. It's really cool. Very heavy, like kind of 70s soundtrack vibes. If that
absolutely, totally. Totally. It does. Film soundtrack, exactly.
And this is the second one. You actually did another one sometime back.
It is.
And you added
like
another
9 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometime back.
It takes a long time to do this stuff, and it's funny. It's not really structured, but it is structured, and it's you think it's tough enough being in a band and arguing and fighting all the time, but this thing, like, we all get along, and it's like it's not ready till it's ready, and we know when it's ready, and so it's just crazy.
Well, and you've added on another. Do we call it a talking booker? Like, what would you call the member?
Yeah,
of this band?
Dom. So Dom's he and Jared, my partners, go way back. They've done a bunch of stuff together. They have a label called Gigante Sound. It's like this experimental label, and they speak the same language. So when we started we put up the record. It was just Jared and I, and we decided we were going to start doing some live shows. It's a lot of sound for two people.
Right.
And he was just like a perfect fit. And he's like one of us. I mean, it wasn't even like a getting to know you period. He was just in. He's just another member of the band.
Well, and it's something where it seems like you have to have a certain commitment to vision, a sort of commitment to the bit. to
yeah, absolutely.
So it's
That's right.
Good to have someone on board with the program, so to speak.
Totally. Well, this kind of music, I mean, it's hard to kind of actually find people who can kind of sync on this kind of thing, because it's very subjective, and it's very, subconscious. It's like how it feels to you. Yeah. And, it's hard enough. I mean, shit, man, I've been in so many bands trying to find a guitar player that I, bonded with, and this is a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah, and it's something where, and again, you say feel, it's something I was talking the other day to a friend about. John Carpenter, those John Carpenter movies.
Right, sure.
And like how, like, oh man, they're just so good at like evoking a feel. And sometimes it's just a dude with a synthesizer, there's
totally.
Nothing else. But he manages to do it. And
absolutely. That's the beauty of it. That's right.
So do you find that, are you scoring like a movie in your head when you're putting this stuff together, or is it more just kind of like finding that moodiness?
It's kind of like sculpture, like visual sculpture, because you're getting somewhere when you start seeing things. If that makes any sense. It's all of us. We start getting into it, we start seeing the vision, and we realize that we're getting there. We're locking into it. It's a really trippy thing. I've never worked like this in my life, and getting in with Jared and doing this was really it was great for me, because it made me look at approaching music and sound from a totally different perspective.
Well, that's
and
interesting.
I'm hoping.
Yeah,
I mean,
no. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. No.
It is soundtrack music. I mean, in the way that it isn't. There isn't a film that exists, but we kind of discovered the film. We kind of, by making it, we kind of realized it. If that makes any sense.
No, I totally get that, and I think this has actually become a topic of discussion in a few shows lately. That I think that there's this kind of hunger right now for that manner of composition of music that, it may have already existed, but just the way that humans sort of operate within society now,
right?
I think there's hopefully there's a time and place for almost everything, but I feel like I listened to it a couple times. One time I threw it on, I was like just doing stuff, around the house, and I was like, oh, this is good doing stuff around the house music, which is underrated, I gotta say. Like, as much as you want to be like, oh, this is we actually think this should be the Suspiria remake is going to be using some. Okay, cool, yeah, that's fine and important, but also, like, you're doing the dishes too. You want something to listen to while you're doing the dishes.
Right. Well, it's funny. I mean, for me, like, you do things because you're missing something too, right? Like, there's something missing in my life, because I need to do this kind of thing. And, I think that the shift to computers has been a great thing for recording and for musicians, but I hear a lot of linearity, and I hear a lot less imagination and more perfectionism, technical perfectionism, and I miss the magic that I grew up with, John Carpenter films, for example, right? Yes. Like, that were evocative, right? And so for me, it's kind of discovering that thing that I'm kind of feel like I'm missing. I want to like music. I want to be inspired by music. So we kind of went in that direction.
Well, and it's not that you don't have you have a history with that as well. Like, I mean, I was just thinking the other day about your contribution to that one Milk Cult record that,
Oh, right.
That
That's true.
people don't remember, which is fantastic. It's a really cool record. And it's one of the things where it kind of seemed like, it was great. And for those not in the know, I think at this point it's okay to sort of reveal the mystery that the Steel Pole Bathtub guys had an alter ego called Milk Cult. Right. And for the second record, Burned or Buried, they brought in folks such as yourself, Billy, and the Neurosis guys, and Carla from Geraldine Febbers and Ethel Meatplow and all that. And really just cool record that kind of works like a soundtrack but plays like a comp, almost. Mm-hmm. Is probably the best way to put it. And I remember, And I remember at the time, and you'll have to forgive me because it was the internet was not as it is now, and I was a younger man. I was like, oh, that dude's from Faith No More and he's playing on this? Oh, this is way weirder than I expected him to be able to do.
Right. I hear that. It's funny. I mean, I think as far as our...
No insult intended, by the way. That says more about me.
No, not at all. No. Not at all. I mean, it's funny. I hear that still. Like, I mean, I thought, Faith No More, I mean, we've kind of taken some beatings for it, too. We've kind of gone in directions that people kind of wished we hadn't gone. We kind of pulled ourselves. And I would say we have a little more freedom than a lot of our contemporaries as far as, like, whenever we make another record, we can pretty much do anything, I would say. But people still think of me kind of as this rock dude.
Right.
That's cool. I mean, that's all right. It's fine. It's funny, though. It's funny to think about.
Well, it's funny.
I don't think of myself like that way at all.
No, and clearly you have a story discography that would kind of give proof to that lie if somebody were to try to say that. And even within the Faith No More catalog. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, how long? I mean, that Milk Cult record. How old is that? That's got to be 20 years old, right?
It's probably about 20 years old.
I can't believe when you said that word. I'm like, holy shit. It brought back a lot of memories. It's funny.
That's all. Well, tell me about the making of that, because I had Mike on years ago, and I've actually been talking about having Dale Flatham on, who's awesome. He's doing a band called The Hand now. But 1994, by the way, I just looked it up.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay. Shit.
So what was the process on that like? Now, and when you talk about like narrow casting, they're gonna be like, I can't believe you had the guy from Faith No More on. They just talked about this stupid fucking Milk Cult record.
Well, I played on one track. I mean, but my roommate Eric was one of the members of the band. So
Eric Holland, Conco.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a studio down in my basement where we worked on a couple Faith No More records, actually. And he did some work down there. I mean, it's just, San Francisco was a cool world where there was a lot going on and a lot of people doing creative stuff. And these guys were like, Eric being my roommate, and, I was closer to it. But it was just a great situation, actually.
Yeah.
Real smart guys. Nobody was making a lot of money, but really a lot of creativity, a lot of talent.
Well, and it's interesting to... Christ, this came up when I was talking to Greg from Deerhoof, too, about how kind of San Francisco used to be versus how it is now. And it's almost hard to describe. It's almost hard to describe to people that only have the frame of reference for what it is now. Of like, no, it was like really, like, free is the wrong word because obviously everyone was still struggling. But it was entirely different, and it's kind of sad.
Because I live here. I still live on the same block I've lived for the past 30 years. So all the landmarks are the same, and if you don't think about it, it's the same place. But when I think about all the situations that have happened, say when I walk down my block, it's mind-boggling to think this is the same city that it was then. Because, it was really different. And there wasn't any money here, really. So
right.
You pretty much do whatever you wanted.
Yeah,
didn't care what you did. It was amazing time. And I moved here when I was 18, and it was great thing to do. In retrospect, really formative, and my perspective comes from that period. Fantastic. But yeah, now it's still got a little bit of coolness. I think if you're visiting and you've never been here before, you'd probably really like it.
Yeah.
But it isn't what it was.
It isn't like you could go to some, warehouse space in the middle of nowhere that's like a bicycle rodeo's going on and like see like
exactly
3 amazing bands. And it's, whatever, times change, et cetera, but it is kind of cool that, well, it's funny because actually last time I saw you in person, which is years ago, was at the Parkside, and you were playing with Dale and Tim Moss.
Oh, so you went to the show. Oh, cool.
Yeah. In fact, I actually caught your bass, and I stopped your bass from falling on the ground when we were upstairs like in the green room. I was like, oh, shit. Like, quick reflexes.
Jesus.
But that was like that porn show, Men of Porn, was definitely like a reminder of like, oh, yeah, like it used to be more like this. And then that reminded me also of the time before that I had seen you was with Jello's band, which was right before you guys got back together as Faith No More. So that was like, I think you were starting to call it Guantanamo School of Medicine.
That's right. Right at that time. We had just recorded the 2 records, but I think the name was new. I don't think the band even had a name yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, it's the new Jello band.
Right, exactly.
And the dude from Victims Family's on guitar, and Billy's on bass.
Exactly. That was really fun, too. I love those guys.
Yeah, interesting band, and it was that was great to see. And it was I hadn't at that time. I don't think I'd seen you play. I don't think I'd even seen you play a small club, or at least let's put it this way: I wasn't aware of it at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, you have a long storied relationship with the players, especially Mr. Biafra. Did he just be like, "Well, Billy, I'm gonna need you to play some of these songs for me"? Or what?
He actually did. Actually, basically.
Good.
He was, I think Ministry played at the Fillmore, and he was there, and he was getting ready to turn 50, and he just was going to do a gig for his 50th birthday. Mm-hmm. And I was like, sure, that sounds great. And, he's pretty, I would say he's focused and motivated, where he's just always, writing, he's always coming up with stuff, and, there's always more to be done, which is great, actually. And I think I played in that band for about a year.
Yeah.
It was great.
And then as that was sort of spinning up, then there was this alignment of the planets that things started to come together for Faith No More doing stuff, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the amount of touring that was coming up with Faith No More, there's no way I could be in Biafra.
Yeah.
It was the way it was.
It would not have been fair to Jello, wouldn't have been fair to everyone else. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And and they did fine. I can't remember what the Chemo from Griddle.
Yep.
Yeah, great player, great dude.
Totally.
Another lost old San Francisco band, Griddle. Jesus. So tell me how I'm super fascinated by when bands get together and do reunions, and I talked to a lot of bands and getting different stories, and like getting the story that isn't the normal story, like for instance, the Pixies. Oh well, we got offered a bunch of money and we decided to cash that check. It's like, oh, okay,
all right.
Well, good for you. That's fine. I support that, but that's the story. Oh okay. Because it kind of didn't really seem like you guys were gonna do that necessarily.
Well, we're very complex. We are a very complex stew of people. Yeah.
It's a lot of issues. It seems like it's almost, sorry to interrupt, but it seems like it's like a very different collection of folks.
Oh, absolutely, completely different. And I mean, we have our history together, so we know each other really well, but we're really different. And it's kind of like we split up in '97, '98, and it's 2009, and everybody's kind of like was really went in different directions, and it just seemed like those things were the kind of biorhythms kind of get back in sync for a bit. But I mean, I don't think we worked out any of our real issues. I mean, I think we're just as complex now as we were when we split up the first time, and we still, I don't know, it's still a complicated thing. Sometimes it makes perfect sense, and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, when it does, we do it, and we do play together really well live, so that's pretty cool. But we're a complex beast. I can't really tell you what happened on that one and what will happen again. I can tell you my situation, but I can't figure everybody out, to be honest.
Mm. Well, you almost don't, I guess you don't necessarily need to, as long as everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when we do the gigs, everybody's focused and does a great fucking job, and we play well together. So that's great. I'm cool with that completely.
And that's, I mean, to a certain degree, I guess that's almost enough, especially since there's a whole generation of people that never got to see it the first time, or maybe they missed it,
Yeah,
or whatever. So
yeah, you know. I mean, I think that's a great thing. I don't think about it like that, but it is a good thing what you were saying. If I think about things like that, I'm just going to go nuts.
Right. Well, yeah.
About generations you've never seen us, and then who am I, and who's this person? And it's a rat hole. You know, I want to try to stay away from that. But I know what you're saying. There's a lot of logic to that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go too far with that. Otherwise, you're just one single infinitesimal speck in an ever-expanding universe, and oh my god.
That's one thing. Exactly.
But it was interesting to me that at that point you have, when you're coming back to music like that, I always love talking to different artists and being like, what did you find anything new about some of those tunes, like coming back and playing them, of like, oh yeah, this I kind of forgot about this, or like maybe you had like a different context for it because you've done so much since then.
That for sure. It's funny, there's a lot of songs that never really quite felt right ever. Like they were like 98% finished, and when we came back the second time to play them again, it's like we fixed them. It's like really quickly. Like, what the fuck? And so it was like a rock in my shoe for years. And it's like, oh, why don't we just tighten this thing up? Oh, wow, oh, that's way better. Oh, why didn't we do that in the first place? Maybe we got older and it's different. We learned more. I don't know.
What was it? Something where like you just did, age and wisdom was like, oh, you know what? Hey, before we move forward with this, like this one part was always annoying to me. Like, is it something like that? Or?
I mean, when you're making music, sometimes, you have to really trust yourself, and you also have to be very critical, because if something doesn't quite feel right, but you really want it to get done, you're going to tell yourself it's right. Even though it bothers you, it gives you anxiety. And I'm thinking like as a bass player, I play with a drummer. If the groove isn't 100% right, sometimes we would just say, yeah, it's right. It sounds fine. It's fine. And when I think about it, going back, it's like I've always hated playing this fucking thing. And it's like, well, if I move the kick drum over here, it's like, there it is. Thank you. Like, in a way, if you're not careful, you can kind of be in denial of your own, like, I don't know. You have to really pay. It's a certain. You don't want to be too critical, but at the same time, you really have to listen to it, like that you're really getting something that you're doing.
Well, it's almost like you don't want to be too critical, but you don't want to look at it with rose-colored glasses necessarily either. I mean, I think there's
No, you do not want to do that. No.
You don't want to dislocate a shoulder, patting yourself on the back or nothing. So.
Exactly. I mean, with Talking Book, with the sounds that we had, we could have just like thrown the faders up, and the sounds kind of worked together a little bit. It wouldn't have taken us 6 or 7 years to make.
Yeah.
But it would have been fucking great, But the fact is, we really, that's one thing we kind of did was like, it's got to feel right. It absolutely has to feel right, and that's it's more work, but I definitely can let it go now. I'm happy with it.
That's good. And do you feel like that's just like a growth thing? Like, do you feel like that maybe wasn't the case back in the day?
Well, it's like you're always put to the test, like how bad you really want something, right? I mean, there's always compromises. There's always choices, right? Nothing's ever perfect in this world. So you're always like, change your level of where you're willing to settle. And, everybody does it. It's just, sometimes like something like this Talking Book, it's not going to sell 1 million records. It's not going to be huge. But what it can do is you can take the time where you don't have any kind of pressure like that, and you can actually get something that you're satisfied with.
The record company isn't yelling for the single.
Yeah, it never would for this kind of music. Never in a billion years. But really, it is completely personal.
Right, and it's for the people that it's for, and that's something that I think is actually increased in value in the world now, because there's ways of audiences more easily connecting with it. That there's a lot of value to it. I mean, Christ, this whole fucking show is based on that idea. So.
Right. No, that's true, actually. Yeah, well, you would know. Right. You would know.
But, that said, like, it is, it's something where, there's obviously no guarantee that the thing will find its audience, but it's always a pleasant surprise if and when it does.
Right.
And it allows...
And trust.
to have the gatekeepers largely out of the picture, even though there are some new gatekeepers, is that's a. I mean, it's hard. Again, it's hard to describe to like people that didn't grow up with it. It's not how it used to be.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we were lucky that we actually, grew up with some kind of, we learned some kind of standards, personal standards with what we do and what we make, that I think we can be responsible with, and we can kind of show people, you can hold up, you can hold quality up, you can hold out for, maybe you might make it a little less out of it, but the work stands for itself. I mean, there's something to be said for that.
Well, and that seems to be like a unifying factor too, and I think that's important for artistic fulfillment. But I mean, it's also good to have context as well. And speaking of context, like I just remembered that the MC50, that was amazing. Holy crap, man! Like,
oh, did you see that?
Yeah. My dude Brendan on drums, and what an all-star lineup! Like you, Kim from Soundgarden, and freaking Marcus from Zen Gorilla.
I know, awesome, right? It was really fun. I got to say, I love those guys. Absolutely love those guys. That was a great thing.
So how did that come to pass? Did like Wayne just like, call you up or like, send a freaking bat signal or something? Like what?
No, so they already were doing shows, and they had the guy from King's X, Doug, he was playing. And I guess it wasn't working out. I mean, I didn't know. I saw when they were doing the gigs, and I was like, oh man, because I knew Wayne already.
Yeah.
He was a friend of mine for a while already, and I love the guy, and I loved MC5, obviously.
Yeah,
and
okay.
So I was like, oh man, I was just thinking, I would love to have done that gig, And when I was like going outside, I'd run the store, my phone was ringing, and I just picked it up, and it was like, hey, Bill, it's Wayne. Yeah, hey, Wayne, how are you? Hey, we need a bass player. Can you do it? We're touring for 3 months in about 3 weeks. And it's like, shit. Like, what am I going to say? No?
Yeah, you know what is funny is that call is what people who don't play in bands think being a band is like. And it's and just to be clear, it's not usually
that's
like
true.
that.
It doesn't work like that. Exactly. That's right. That's right.
Just like divine providence as scripted out for the second act for a movie.
Right. I mean, really.
Well, and Christ, it's Wayne Kramer, and like to have the opportunity, but also the pressure of playing those songs for like what's like the 50th anniversary.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, thank God when we got to Detroit, because we played on the night of the 50th anniversary in Detroit. So thank God we had a couple months of touring under our belt before we got there, and I was completely comfortable with the material. But it was. When we're going into this thing, I was like, shit, man, that's a lot. It's a lot of responsibility there to not fuck this thing up.
Yeah, I mean, you have people who've like waited their entire lifetime to see these songs played live at all, or that like, they grew up with these songs, like.
It was really a thing. No doubt about it. It was really a thing. And it's funny, I mean, Wayne, when he was 70 years old then, maybe 71. And, I mean, he's amazing. We see him live. I mean, the guy is still just like completely on it.
Man, that dude can move too. For a man his age, I mean, even not for a man his age, I'm like, Jesus Christ. It's like James Brown stuff.
Like, I mean, totally. We got to Detroit, and there's still like the old school like ride-overs and stuff. Like these 70-year-old people still, like camps and like it's trippy to see. I guess you don't outgrow some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for something like the MC5, it's just as much a lifestyle as it was a genre.
It's a lifestyle, completely. There's one guy, he came to one of our shows, an old guy, gray hair, with like an army jacket, and someone said, hey, were you the guy that bombed the CIA headquarters? Were you the guy that did it? And he said, well, if I said I did it, you'd think I was bragging. If I said and I didn't, you'd think I was lying. So I'm not going to answer that.
Holy shit.
That's the kind of people you meet on that tour like that.
Yeah, that's when you just go, okay.
Yeah, totally.
All right, fair enough. Fair. Well, and that tour was so crazy because I was, very familiar with everyone in the lineup, and obviously, like Brendan Canty's, well known for Fugazi, one of my favorite drummers. But it's like, oh yeah, that guy's a badass rock and roll drummer too. That's like beyond just what he did in Fugazi. Like people don't realize like that's that's, I think, like that second MC5 record's like one, like the records he like kind of learned to play drums to or something along those lines, like.
Completely. I mean, it's really funny. I mean, I'd seen Fugazi live a couple of times. I never met Brendan, so I didn't really know them. We kind of came up from the same period of time, but from opposite coasts. So
yeah,
we never really, our paths never crossed. And I thought, okay, well, so we're going to play in the sense of the Fugazi guy. Man, Brendan is like, we actually grew up in the same kind of era. We have so much in common, and he's a super well-rounded guy. He's like, whatever you think a guy in Fugazi's like, he's not that guy. He's a very complex human being, really interesting and really knowledgeable.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a pleasure getting to know him.
Hilarious dude too, like just
totally
amazingly hilarious, and just one of the genuinely most. Like,
exactly.
When he asks you a question, he's genuinely interested in the answer, which I think was, if that was more common, I think the world would be a better place.
I would say.
But, I mean, of all the people in the lineup, and obviously Kim from Soundgarden, like, that guy's a monster player that is amazing as well. Like, the fact that, because Zungorilla is a band that when I first moved to the Bay Area, because I'm from, I don't say this often, but I'm from the Central Valley of California.
Okay.
I'm from Modesto, the Kansas of California.
Right.
And, like, coming to the Bay Area, like Zungorilla is a band like you see all the time, and I was always amazed. I'm like, how does that guy jump so high? And like, oh my God, that guy's such a great front man. Like, just like not having any frame of reference, just be like, oh, I better get this single on Man's Ruin, and not even knowing that would be a historical anomaly. But the fact is, like, that's something where it's like, oh, wow. Those are like such big shoes to fill. Fucking Marcus.
Totally.
Marcus could
do
it.
Right? He did it. He was great. Absolutely. And you know what? He really did it with respect, and he didn't cheat at all. He was fucking amazing.
Yeah, I felt like it was definitely something where like all the like all the old heads that were maybe waiting to like be bummed out by that were like,
yeah,
all right.
Hey, all of the guys in the band, all of them, I mean, the guys in the MC5, they go back, I mean, the music goes back 50 years. The guys go back 70 years. And so there's a lot of, every single member of the band had these expectations. And, we didn't play exactly like they did, and we didn't try to. We just kind of, but it was obvious, I think, hopefully, that we treated the music with a lot of respect, and we didn't cheat on it.
Right.
We gave it everything we could, like the way those guys did. And I think that worked. I didn't get a lot of negativity, and I was wondering if we were. And I wouldn't have actually faulted them if they did send some our way, because they're big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I mean, almost impossibly so. Like, how would you?
Almost impossibly so. Exactly. Exactly. So
no.
I'm alive to say I did it, and I got out with fucking peace.
you got the T-shirt.
Exactly.
So, and of course, Faith No More was no strangers to playing like big shows and things along those lines. But you've done a lot of stuff since then. What's the thing that you wish you could impart, the wisdom you wish you could impart to other bands that, not that there's necessarily any bands like in the same position to be like how Faith No More hit now, but just in that, giving advice to an imaginary younger band that could probably use it, or even like to yourself back in the day. Is there any advice you could think of?
That's a really good point. I mean, it's not like I go out as much as I used to, where I used to live going to gigs, so I can't really, I'm going to talk out of my ass if I really give too much real advice, other than if you do something, you really, you have to see it through. I mean, we were a band that, was kind of weird. Couldn't play with anybody, and we did the van thing for years. And, I mean, actually, it's funny because, we're all sitting here quarantined, right? I haven't left the house myself probably for 2 weeks now.
Yeah, man.
And I've toured in a van, man. That's way harder than this,
You know what? I didn't even think about that, but it's actually somewhat
touring in a van.
Similar, yeah.
But I would say to kids, this quarantine, if you can do this, you can do anything. I mean, this isn't bad, actually.
Hey, you got internet, you got the TV.
Yeah, exactly. this is like a piece of cake.
What are you crying about?
Yeah. But I mean, if you're willing to do that, do it. I mean, to be honest, when it was really hard, that really sucked, I guess I would say, if you're really into what you're doing, you don't notice those things that are so hard.
Right.
Because you're getting so much more benefit out of it than the hardship. So if you find something that you really want to do, I think the hardship isn't something that should scare you away.
Well, it's almost like if you just make the journey the destination, then you'll be okay.
Well, and that's great advice, except that when somebody says that to me, it doesn't quite sink into me the right way. Like, I always fuck the journey. I want the destination, right?
Right. When are we going to be there? God damn
I mean, I agree. I agree. The principle is correct. But it's more like, if you, I guess. If you can choose the journey that where you don't care about the destination, maybe that's how I would say it.
Good. That's good. I like that. We'll get that engraved. We'll make up some doilies and some macrame, perhaps.
All right.
So it's so interesting to me, and you realize I got to come at I'm coming at as a casual fan of Faith No More.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you play it actually on that when you very first got back together, and I was stoked you played that Sparks cover because Sparks is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Oh yeah, one of the greatest ever. Absolutely.
So great. I mean, if we could just this could be a podcast where Billy and Conan talk about Sparks, and I would be totally okay with that. But
cool.
To talk about being narrowcasted,
Right.
But it's interesting to me that with the different lineups of Faith No More, the different personality and different creativity and different things that the members brought, especially the guitar players.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a for instance, like Jim Martin, right?
Right.
Brought a completely different thing to the table than the other guys did. And it kind of brought out, while there's a through line through all of it, it definitely seems like, there are different epochs of
absolutely
of different folks playing guitar. You had,
that's right,
including the record with Trey, who I had on my old show.
Right.
Compelling and fantastic figure. Just what a cool guy, right?
Right.
But yeah, talk to me about, I guess as more of a vague terms, John versus Jim, versus
oh boy, what are they like?
All these different dudes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I would say, well, we had probably 5 guitar players before Jim, believe it or not.
Oh my God.
We went through a bunch of them. And the first show we ever did, the guitar player from Crucifix was our guitar player.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
wow.
We've been through a lot. And so when Jim came in, to be honest with you, we kind of wanted to do something that felt a little heavier. Like our drummer came from, a Black Sabbath background. I was more kind of Black Flag guy, but heavy was cool, And
you guys could meet in the middle on My War, maybe.
Yeah, that's when I started losing them. Actually,
okay.
That period. That was a little too sludgy for me. But Jim was the guy that Mike knew in Hayward, and we had to get this guy who really was he didn't come from San Francisco at all in any sense, but he brought this kind of animal thing that I think that we were really missing and we wanted. And to tell you the truth, this band for me got different because I never thought I'd be in a band playing with a guy like Jim ever.
Yeah.
But it worked, and actually I learned a lot from it. It really it gave me a great perspective. And we played. I mean, we actually worked together really well. He had a great tone. He was very deliberate. He was a very stubborn individual, but that's part of what you bring to your instrument too, right? Mm-hmm. So there was some great things about it. I mean, when it got to the point where we wanted to kind of do something that was, I don't know, we were getting pulled in some kind of strange directions. I don't know if he was so on board with that, and that's kind of where the friction started. The next guy after him was Trey.
Who I knew from Mr. Bungle, and only really from Mr. Bungle at the time. But yeah, I mean,
Trey can do whatever.
He's yeah, exactly.
That dude to play, he can do it.
That dude is like the wild wizard of music. Yeah.
Like, we want to kind of do this with the song. He goes, "You mean like this?" Yeah, exactly. Wow,
Huh? You just pulled that out of the hat, huh? All right.
He was amazing. He was still trying to figure us out because we had a lot of history with ourselves, and he's trying to figure out what works for us taste wise. I think he was coming from a little bit outside, but what we were doing, he got it when we explained it, and he fit completely great. And he's a super pleasant, chill guy to be with. So that was cool.
And he was the King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime record is Trey, right?
Yes, exactly. And after that, Dean we toured with, but we didn't write with him. And he was kind of like one of us, where he was one of our crew members actually. When Jim was out, he kind of came in and he knew the songs. He played guitar on the sound checks because Jim didn't want to come to sound check. So we knew we could play the songs.
Right.
But John is kind of like a mixture of both guys. John can do pretty much whatever you want him to do. Like Trey, he kind of has that kind of versatility. And he kind of, but he's more rock centered like Jim was. So there's somewhere he's more eclectic, but more leaning in that kind of world. And another guy that as far as working with him, he's great. I mean, fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, coming out from the outside and just being like, oh, I wonder how they're going to approach, scientist hat on and like lab coat. Oh, how are they going to approach all this different material? Oh, some of it doesn't necessarily feel like it would fit together well. Let's see what they're doing.
It's so funny. We went through a lot of great guitar players. I mean, really good, well-respected that somehow just didn't click with what we were writing. I mean, so we were looking for guitar players. And guy Jordy from Killing Joke, the dude's fucking amazing.
Yeah, that guy's okay.
One of the best guitar players ever.
He's getting
right?
good, yeah.
but I mean, his personality was so strong in his writing that it's like we sounded like Killing Joke, right? Because he's a monster, and it just wouldn't work. I mean, it could work, but it wouldn't be us.
It would be different. Yeah.
It would be a Killing Joke cover band in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame because the dude he's probably one of the greatest guitar players I've ever seen. Just getting a guy just hanging at rehearsal and just watching him play and just seeing what comes out of him.
Oh yeah,
he's a natural. He's a machine. But I really wish that would have worked out. But the point is that chemistry is a tough thing. No matter your abilities or whatever, if it doesn't quite fit on this kind of more subconscious level, it's not going to work right.
Right. Well, and that's something where it seems like the alchemy required to make Faith No More happen is so delicate. Like one imbalance of the wrong element, it's just everything so explodes. Delicate. Yeah,
and that's exactly what happens. Actually, that's exactly what happens. It's very hard to maintain that delicate balance always.
I mean,
it's exhausting, to be honest with you. It is.
Your words.
It is.
I'm sure.
No, it is. It's exhausting. But I mean, I would say that when it does work, though, it is really something bigger than the members,
Well, absolutely.
It does create something that you couldn't do on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then talk to me about, what was it? It was 2009 where everybody came back. Like you're playing with Roddy,
Mm-hmm.
and it had been how long since you had played with Roddy at that time?
I don't know, 12 years, something like that.
Yeah. No big deal. And again, you got all these different, it's like the Magnificent Seven, right? You got everybody in the room.
Right? It was. It kind of was, yeah. Actually, funny to say that.
Mike's, I'm like, oh yeah, hold on a second, I got to just, record the spaghetti western soundtrack and then sing on this death metal record, and then I'll be right there,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Did you have any reticence about doing it?
Absolutely, completely. Yeah, it's a personal thing. I mean, I like to have done before, and you don't see somebody for 12 years. You're thinking, well, maybe they're different now, and why are they doing this, and what are they going to get out of it, and are they going to respect what if we do this? I mean. Let me think about a way to say this. You put a big part of your life into this thing, and I kind of felt that we did some really took some chances. They didn't always work out, but there's something about the risk that we took and that we kind of came out intact somehow. And I would always want to think that we'd have that element to us. And when you don't see somebody for 12 years, you know, somebody's just hard up on cash and they just want to, you know, make some money, and they're not really respecting what you did before. I mean, there's a vulnerability there because you're only going to find out once you get in front of about 1,000 or 5,000 people.
Right. Oh, yeah, no pressure.
So there's a lot of trust. There's a lot of trust there. And I had some issues with that because I'm like, well, why? What are the motivations? What's the deal? But it all worked. I mean, they did their job. I was pleasantly surprised. It was the best case scenario.
Right. Because there's so many, if you do it as a choose your own adventure, there's so many ways you could end up dead on
the thing is, if it goes to shit, you basically, then that means that your earlier part of your life kind of was shit.
Yep.
Right?
Well.
I mean, all of that suffering in the van, all of those fights, all that shit you went through was all for nothing because at the end of the day, it all went to shit. Yeah. Like, nobody wants that.
Totally, but it is the rare example where you held the creative angle and stayed true to yourself, but also provided something that, you know, was really vital and cool for people.
We did our best. We did our best. I think we did. I mean, it's a battle, but yeah, I think we went with those intentions, and I think we did pretty good.
So, you know, this many years back, backing away from, the first record is what, 85, 86, something like that? Yeah,
85 probably. Yeah, recorded in 84.
And at the time, I was really busy being 7 years old, so sorry if I didn't get that exactly. What especially that era, the Mosley era of Faith No More, kind of began the influence that Faith No More begat wouldn't necessarily be the thing that you would be creatively aligned with in a lot of ways. I'm trying to be very delicate about how I say this.
Don't be delicate. Just say it.
So a lot of bands that were into Faith No More are pretty fucking terrible. And
oh yeah, right. Okay. I understand. Yeah.
So and it's something where, you know, you can't be responsible for. And I'm not just talking about like that era. You can't be responsible for what you influence.
What you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
But does it ever like, you know, is that something where has there ever been any like, you know, kind of rough epiphanies of just like, you're doing that, huh? And this is okay.
Well, somebody shows you kind of a bad, unflattering picture of yourself, right? Where they get all the vulgar parts of it and they shove it right back in your face. And then, maybe they got some elements, but you know, like some of the more flattering elements are kind of missing, right?
Right.
It's, you know, I remember being on the bus and people would drop off demo tapes, you know, all these slap-bass demo bands. Like, God. You know,
cancer.
They're called, we're doing this funk metal thing. Here's a demo. What do you think? And I was like, sometimes I have to sit there and drink a beer and listen to it with the people, you know, like, I'm like, God damn it, I hate this stuff. I don't have anything to do with this shit. But, you know, it is flattering. You're right. It is. Yeah. And you kind of have to let it go. You know, I think anything that keeps people inspired, if you're inspiring them, great. Good for them. Whatever it takes. Quality of life.
Yeah. That's a very Zen way of looking at it, I think. And
it has to be. You're going to go crazy if you don't look at it like that. Exactly. You have to. It's a coping mechanism.
So what's of the men? And you've recorded a lot of records. You know, we didn't even, you know, we haven't even touched on a a quarter of it necessarily. But when you think about what you want to get out of, you know, like a live performance versus a recording, what kind of things do you think of?
Live performance is like boxing. It's like professional boxing, where you kind of go out in the ring and you're either going to get your ass kicked or you're going to kick their ass, right? That's how I look at it. So it's very physical and it's very focused. It's very, very it's very about coordination and thinking really quickly and on your feet. That's really different than recording. Recording is like connecting with a part deep inside yourself that it's not easy to pull out. It's not easy to get to. You have to take a lot of different approaches till you get there. So they're completely opposite, actually. Completely.
but you've done a lot of both. And so,
and it's like a big seesaw, actually. I mean, so the Real thing got really popular, but we were on tour for like a year and a half, and we got off the road and we were freaking exhausted, and they're like, "Okay, guys, you gotta need another record now," And Warner Brothers was like, "When's the next record?" Yeah, I mean, it is a real gear shift. It's a really different way. And I've always had a hard time writing music while I'm touring because it's a mindset is more about like being like more like a professional athlete or something, and keeping focused. And that's not how I write music. I don't write music with that mentality at all.
Well,
it's more about kind of being relaxed and letting the world kind of talk to you a little bit.
Right.
Opening yourself up.
And that kind of goes back to what you're talking about, with the talking book stuff of
exactly. Yes.
Kind of following that thread there and trying to find the thing, trying to find the mood, trying to if not waiting for the lightning to strike, trying to like create the atmospheric conditions for lightning.
Right. So what's really interesting, actually, about talking book, and you actually, and the thread we're on, actually, is really interesting thing I'm just realizing is when we started doing live shows, I didn't like it with talking book because...
Wow, really?
Okay. You know why? Because I didn't get it, because it was kind of like the way we went into recording, we went into playing live. It wasn't like a Faith No More gig where you go up there and you just kill them, right? You just pound them to death.
Oh, sure, it's a different approach.
It's more like this recording in the studio with people watching, right? I didn't feel really comfortable with that in the beginning. It was different, and and now it's cool, but that really the line between performing and writing with talking book, it's not quite so clear cut as it is like with a band like Faith No More.
Well, and you don't have a Marcus or a Jello or a Mike Patton to hide behind too. It's sort of like.
I guess that's true, but you're also creating, because there's so much. It's not improvising, but it's loose, and it's either you connect or you don't connect, and you're always like trying to like listen and connect. There's a lot of pressure when people are watching you do that. It's one thing doing it in a studio,
right?
With the tape rolling.
But when you got an audience,
and another thing when people bought tickets and they're watching you, like.
I can't remember who I had on, and it was a really long time ago. But someone said it's like a spinning plate act sometimes. And that always kind of stuck with me. I'm like, oh yeah, because if you you're paying attention to this, but don't stop paying attention to that, because then the plate's gonna fall. And
right, yep, it's a trip.
So real quick, and Billy, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah.
Tell me about Koolarrow. It's been what's it, like 2000 or so, 1999.
I think around 1980. 99, yeah. So, going on 21 years. So, what it was when it started was, it was Faith No More. I toured a lot. All over the world, and there was a time when, kind of records, there was amazing bands all over the place, and
right.
I was only discovering them because I was on tour and people were giving me records.
Yeah, and some of them were good.
No way of getting released. Some of them were fucking amazing. Some of them were better than anything coming out here, right?
Right. So for every slap bass funk odyssey record, there's gonna be something
right,
badass
exactly.
too.
Oh yeah, amazing slappers everywhere. Yeah, you see the Finnish style of slapping. I can't even describe it. But there was it kind of made me realize like what an export country it is for culture, but there was no importing coming in, and America's always kind of patted itself on the back of being really kind of like a creative place for musicians and arts, but I realized that they actually wasn't a lot of interest in input from outside, so I kind of created this thing to try to kind of be a pipeline for bands to get in here, to get into the system here and get in people's minds here. It was a really tough road, and I think one thing that made it kind of hard for me was that I just picked a good band. I didn't care what kind of genre and what they did. I just kind of went for like just getting quality and making a platform for it. And so it's very hard to do a label when you can't,
you don't have a genre. Yeah, you're not like
focusing. Exactly, right?
You're not the noise rock label. You're not the metal label. It's like, no, this stuff is good label.
Exactly. So, as far as in terms of idealism, I think it was the right way to go as an artist, but it was tough as a business, even though we're still doing it. And now it's not such a big deal because of the internet. You can hear stuff from Finland now, you can hear stuff from Russia. You can hear anything now. I mean, I still do it. I still feel I will do exceptional stuff. Part of it is I'll produce it, or I'll be involved as almost like a creative partner. But it isn't quite the same as it is when it started, but still doing some cool stuff with it.
Well, and it's interesting that you could have a label that has Alexander of Neubauten and Tad's bands and Brujeria.
Exactly.
And
That's it, right? Exactly.
Hey y'all, here's the hottest band out of Bosnia. Sounds like this.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's right.
But not necessarily a recipe for success financially.
No. But, somebody has to do it, right? I couldn't think of anybody else doing it, so somebody has to do it. I kind of feel like more kind of a radio DJ in a way,
Yeah.
Like, tune into this if you want to check something out that you probably wouldn't have never checked out before.
Well, and I think there's precedent for it, and I think there's something there for people that are willing to maybe get out of their comfort zone. And trust.
I would hope so. Yes, that was the theory. Yeah, I have met people actually, and I have connected with people. But so also I notice on the label side, really, your communication really is with your distributor. It's not with the people who are buying the music necessarily. So you don't get that feedback. Like when you're in a band, people come to your show and they cheer. Yeah. But when you're doing a label thing, you kind of hope that it gets out there a little bit.
Yeah.
Your only gauge is sales, right? But a lot of people know a lot of the stuff that I put out that are I wouldn't have known because the sales numbers wouldn't have told me that. So,
right.
Especially now with streaming, right? You would never know.
Even less.
That's right. Exactly.
But it's also, it's that old axiom, some things you do for money, some things you do for love.
That's it.
And it didn't seem like that was...
It's the journey, man.
Exactly. It didn't feel like that was like a cash in. Let's put it that way.
No, I would say definitely, right. That was not a cash in.
So, Billy, it's been so great talking to you. I can't believe it's been this long.
Cool.
I mean, Christ.
Totally.
Like, what was it, 5 years ago we talked about having you on the show? 4 years ago? I don't remember. Doesn't matter.
I think so. Yeah. Crazy.
Honestly, it's a pleasure. The last thing I've always been asking people is a pretty kind of broad-based question. You can interpret it how you like, but why do you do what you do?
Because the alternative is worse.
That's good. That's solid. I like that.
Right.
I like that.
All right.
Billy, thanks so much. Everybody.
All right,
So is there a, by the way, this record's incredibly hard to find as far as searching. It's, if you want to find the Talking Book record, if you just type in Talking Book, I guarantee you'll find the Stevie Wonder record instead.
I got to work on that. Actually, that's a search engine thing, isn't it?
It's SEO. Yeah, I got a guy.
Yeah, I got to get on that. But do you?
Yeah, he plays in the band.
Oh man,
I can hook you up.
Oh, hook me up, dude. Hook me up.
But yeah,
that's good to know.
Billy, it's a pleasure to have you on, and just look on the internet for. What else? This is it's like 10 years between records or something for this one. So do you have anything else in the pipeline?
Exactly. I'm working with a band from Chile called Como Se Sonara Felipe. So put out a few of their records. I'm just about to mix it now. They're doing great stuff in Chile, and the cool thing is they're getting a lot of respect down there. So that's pretty exciting. We had a whole summer of touring with Faith No More. That's kind of.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, man.
That was my summer. But there's a lot of stuff I'm getting, and also Alberto. You know the band La Plebe, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, well, he's got a label, and he has a band called Imparcial. I just recorded them, and I do stuff with those guys too. Those guys are fantastic too. They're like family. And that's pretty much it. Working with stuff.
Billy Gould, staying busy.
All right.
Appreciate you, brother.
Exactly. All right, man. Take care, and thanks a lot.
All right, take care, man.
I appreciate it.
Oh, there he goes. There he goes.
dashing bold adventure.
So sing and rejoice, and sing and rejoice. But the dream that keeps coming back, your future, your future, your future. Pat yourself on the back and give yourself a fancy, 'cause everything is not yet lost. Does life seem worthwhile to you? Does life seem worthwhile to you?
Here's how to order.
Yes. Now for the next question. Does emotional music have quite an effect on you? Do you feel sometimes that age is against you? Sing and rejoice, and sing and rejoice.
Yes. That's interesting. But tell me, do you often sing or whistle just for fun?
Do you feel sometimes that age is against you? I can help, and I can help you. I can help you help yourself. Does life seem worthwhile to you? Does life seem worthwhile to you?
Here's how to order.
Very close, comatose, senile. If you want to open the hole, just put your head down and go. And step aside the piece of the circumstance. Gotta wash away the taste of evidence. Wash it away. I didn't feel a thing. You didn't mean a thing. Yeah, I testify. Didn't feel a thing. I didn't feel a thing. You didn't mean a thing.
All right, we had a couple tunes there from some young up-and-comers called Faith No More. It's Land of Sunshine, followed by Evidence. After that, we had the Milk Cult song I referenced way earlier, Bo Kness Static. That's not just Billy Gould on bass, it's the fellows from Neurosis hollering away. And then lastly, we had Early Sorrows, which is off of the Talking Book II album that's available now. Really cool stuff. Oh, what a show, what a show, what a show. Cool guy.
Is this thing on?
We seriously did talk about him being on the show about 5 years ago.
Can you hear me now?
And here we are. That's right. There's something to be said for being we are the show that stays around. We are the show that outlasts other shows. Biatch!
Is this thing on?
Yeah, if you want to find everything Billy, koolarrow, it's spelled K-O-L-O.
Hear me now?
K-R-O-W. Busy dude. You don't often see him, but when he's doing something, he's doing something cool, right?
Of our broadcast day. This is my farewell transmission.
The name of the show is Conan and Billy's Protonic Reversal.
Signing
We
off,
are
Mr. and Mrs. America.
broadcast live on Radio Note. 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central,
Anyone
6
within
p.m.
the
Mountain,
sound of
5
my
p.m.
voice.
Pacific. Every Thursday. Podcast RadioNeutron.com
I've got
for the archives.
50,000 watts of power.
We are not slowing down during this epidemic. We are
Wanna
ramping up.
ionize the air.
Plan accordingly. Please rate the show on iTunes. Along those lines, share it around. If you like what you hear,
This microphone turns sound into electricity.
watch us.
Can you hear me now?
And
Out on Route
You know,
128,
take it easy.
dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 The end of radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. There is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency, hey, hey!